Hey friends, welcome to the Well Aligned podcast. This podcast is for women seeking to work within their soul aligned purpose. If you're no longer feeling inspired by your career and are receiving the nudges that there is something more, then this podcast is for you. We interview women who have done just that, have made the transition into a career that lights them up. I'm your host, Sandy, and I've made many career transitions in my life. So I'm excited that you're here. Let's get started with the episode. Welcome back, or should I say welcome back to myself, because I was on vacation. It was a much needed vacation, and I am coming back to a new episode. My guest today is Terri Paige, and Terri is the CEO and co-founder of Medical Transformation Center and the co-creator of Regenerative, which is a curated collection of supplements. Now, Terri has a list of various certifications to her name. She is a certified wellness coach. She is a certified lifestyle coach. But I think what we all know, and well, most of us know this, that certifications, you can go through a certification, right? That's a certification. But what really matters more than anything and what you are applying to those certifications is your life experience, your experience doing things throughout your life that you've enjoyed, that you haven't enjoyed. So you have a collection of all these experiences that apply to the certification, and you can take that certification out into the world. And that's exactly what Terri did. Now, her story is very interesting, how she started out as an accountant, and it was a means to an end, how she explains it. And it was a natural gift to her, just working with numbers, and how that transformed into where she is today. And that was really a part of her own personal health journey into wellness and creating solutions, wellness care for herself. And that catapulted into their business today. And she's going to share that story. But something I want to also share with you, a really golden nugget that Terri had shared on the podcast, is that even though you are doing something that you dislike, you heavily dislike something, hold on to that. I know it's hard to see that at the time when you don't like what you're doing. You don't like what you're doing in your job or your career, but hold on to that knowledge and keep it in a place where you can archive that and look back on it, because it will become useful in your next career journey. And this is something that Terri shares and she talks about. So listen in. Hi, Terri. Welcome to the Well Aligned podcast. I appreciate you coming to talk with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. My pleasure.
Well, I would love it if you could just give our listeners an introduction to you and tell us your name, where you live, and a little bit about what you're doing today.
Okay. Well, my name is Terri Paige, and I actually live in Louisville, Kentucky. And I've been here for a long time. I think I've been in Louisville about 36 years. So that's a good portion of my life. I am a wife and a mother of 8 and a grandmother of 3. And I started out my career actually as an accountant. That was my original education. But today, fast forward, oh my goodness, however many years ago, I am co-owner of a regenerative medicine clinic in Louisville called Medical Transformation Center. And then I also have a few different offshoot businesses from that. And I'm actually, too, an independent consultant with Arbonne, which is very much in alignment with what we do at Medical Transformation Center.
Great. And go back? Let's just go back to prior to all of that, what you're doing now and what you're very passionate about. But let's go back to, you had mentioned that you were in accounting. So maybe let's go back there and talk a little bit about what you were doing there. And was that something that was so aligned with you as a person?
No, no, it absolutely not. But I will tell you, it was a means to an end, right? So we all do things, it used to be pay your dues, right? That's kind of the way that, I kind of grew up in the professional world. You have to pay your dues for a while as you learn skills and move towards goals. And I will tell you that I grew up in a healthcare family. My dad had a private practice out in rural Western Kentucky. He was from the Philippines, but we had settled in Western Kentucky, and he was working with coal miners on black lung and primary care and that type of thing. So I had grown up in the medical world in terms of entrepreneurship and helping out in the office and, doing everything back then. That was the 70s. So, it was, we really could perform any role in the office when we helped at my dad's. So I had that background and I really loved the aspect of being part of people's lives and helping people. But when I was a teenager, actually, I had a teen pregnancy. So I was pregnant as a teenager, and fortunately, still had the opportunity to continue my education. Really had to make a choice of, okay, what am I good at, right? Because we all kind of have those aptitudes that we naturally just are good at for whatever reason. What am I good at, and what's going to be the straightest path to a way to feed myself, right? And my son. So, and this was back again in the late 70s. So I took the test of what I was good at. And I've always been good at math and numbers and being able to just look at something and go, that's not right. We need to dig into that. Really not quite sure why. It's not that I particularly love math, but for whatever reason, it's a gift. And so that's what I chose. I chose accounting because I knew, and especially I graduated from college in 1985. So especially back then, there were plenty of opportunities in the financial world. And so that's what I did. And I did end up, my husband today, we were together back then. We didn't get married when I was younger, but we ultimately did. And he wanted to go to medical school and be a physician. So the idea was, okay, well, if I'm an accountant, that's going to be the great business head for whatever venture we do someday. And so it's not time lost. So that's what I did. I worked as an accountant while he was in medical school and residency, which did give us a really nice springboard to open up, hang a shingle, run a business. And back then when we ran that first business, so I worked in retail accounting and banking and finance. And then I was able, fortunately, to use my accounting skills as it related more to marketing and sales and customer service. So, setting special pricing and doing, budgets for branch banks and things like that. So I was able at least to not always wear I'm going to sit in a room alone and analyze numbers, which is just horrible to me, I do like to talk to people and I enjoy people. So that stint I did as an auditor was literally like torture. But again, it was just a stepping stone. And that's kind of the way I look at things is that, you know, there's always opportunity if you're looking
Mhm.
forward, even though if you're doing something, ugh, I hate this, right? It's going to be useful. Those skills are going to be useful later on, most likely.
Yeah, yeah. I thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that journey. I 100% agree with you is that even though you might be in something working in a field or in a job that is not who you are as a person, there's always going to be a nugget or a piece within that role that is something that you can tap into that might be that opportunity that's going to lead you to where you really want to be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, when I was in banking, for example, I did spend a little over a year in the internal audit department, which it's a hard place because nobody likes an auditor, right? In general, nobody smiles when they see you coming and you're sitting in a room just analyzing data. But what a springboard because I got to look at, small business departments and understand more about small business financials. I got to audit the retail area, the marketing area. So it gave me an opportunity to see so many different facets. And then later on to move to another area of the bank that I loved. But again, that background then gave me a good basis to understand how bankers look at small businesses, for one thing, which was relevant for us as we moved forward into entrepreneurship.
So I'm curious now. So you were in a field that was really numbers based. So how did you get from that position to where you are today? How did that transition happen?
When my husband finished his residency, he did internal medicine and pediatrics. So back then it was a fairly new double residency. You ended up doing dual, so internal medicine and pediatrics, and then getting board certified in both. He had a dream of going out and just being the country doctor somewhere, but we didn't want to move back to quite as small as what we came from. So again, back to my opportunities in the bank, I had access to demographic information because I worked with marketing. So we there was an area just outside of Louisville that was a bedroom community that kept us close to the big city, but more of a rural setting. So, 20 minutes in, right? But still the opportunity to have space and land and good schools and that kind of thing. So we went out there and literally, I'm not kidding, like hung the shingle, started from scratch, zero patients. And it was a very, it was a traditional, and again, this was 1992. So a traditional insurance-based primary care practice. And with my marketing and finance background and that kind of thing, I mean, there were just three of us in the office, me and a nurse and my husband. And he would go fishing during the day when somebody wasn't, we didn't have any patients, and we call him, we've got one, But it was fun. I mean, the world of primary care was very different back then. It was
Mhm.
still more patient focused without a lot
Right.
of the extraneous influences that there are today. And that was wonderful. I mean, we got to, we were part of the community. You got to see babies be born and grow up. You took care of grandma and grandpa and mom and dad and brothers and sisters. So it was very much community driven, which we loved that. We loved it. And I was in that practice working, as a business person for several years. We had some transitions in those businesses. We built one, we grew it, and then we sold it to some partners that we had added on, and then built another one. And during those years too, then we actually started to have more children, and so I stepped away for several years while we had 6 kids in 7 years. That was a lot. Okay, we had a lot. So a total of 8. Like I said earlier, we had one of our daughters was born during his residency, actually. Um, and during that time that I was home, some issues that I had had in my own personal health really got magnified over those years of, just getting older, pregnancy, nursing, diet, etc. A lot of things started to magnify, so much so that we started looking for other ways to help me be well. The traditional answers were, things were moving more towards, here's a symptom, here's a diagnosis, here's a pharmaceutical, here's a pill for that, as
Mhm.
opposed to, going upstream and going, but why? All right. So
Right.
we started down a personal health journey primarily focused on me, trying to help me be well. And it was autoimmune and GI and, just it was that kind of panacea, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue issues that I had going on. And it led us down a path of looking at more, I guess, well care as opposed to sick care. How could I be well? How could I be well? During that time, we were homeschooling kids and living that life out on the farm, and it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of joy in that. So I've had a lot of different things. And actually, it's funny because I was thinking about this earlier in anticipation of our conversation. I've always had that entrepreneurial bug, but sometimes you get focused on other things like raising kids and homeschooling kids or whatever you're doing at the time. But once I started to feel a little bit better with my own personal health, and everybody could go to the bathroom by themselves, it was funny. I wanted to take up something, a hobby. So I started knitting. I learned how to knit. And so I opened up this little business called Crazy Eight Knits because I was knitting so many things, more than my family wanted. So I had
Yeah,
to,
right.
yeah. So there was a little side career over there, a little Crazy Eight Knits. I still do it, but not, of course, to the extent that I used to. Um, but during that time of my own health journey, we started to realize people want this. People want to really look past, and it was, this was all that confluence of 2008, healthcare reform, changes in the whole healthcare system, the economy doing what it did in 2008. And so we made a decision actually at the end of 2010 that I was going to go back into the primary care office for 1 year. That was our thing. 1 year. That's all I'm going to do. 1 year. And help to facilitate transitioning that primary care clinic to be more focused on wellness and optimal health. So that's what we were going to do. So I went in beginning of 2011, told the kids, okay, here are your homeschooling plans. Do them while I'm gone. I'm going to be gone for a year and then I'll be back. Well, here we are. It's 2024 and I've not been back. God love them. That's a different story. But we actually both did then training and certification. I became a certified healthy lifestyle coach through the American Academy of Anti-Aging, Regenerative, and Functional Medicine. My husband went down the path of doing the advanced boards, the fellowship, and so forth with that organization. And we just thought we're going to incorporate this into our insurance-based primary care and people are going to be well. It's going to be wonderful. Well, that's not quite how it panned out. There are many forces in the traditional healthcare world that really are designed not to really focus on wellness, but more on reactive care. And as we went down that journey and really tried to put systems in place, we realized that. And so actually in 2013, we started Medical Transformation Center, the business that we have today, and we ran them in tandem. We kind of split off the more traditional care. We had a 10,000 patient base. We had 4 other practitioners working in that clinic. My husband saw patients in that clinic 4 days a week. And then 1 day a week, we did our Medical Transformation Center, which was more, it was cash pay. We just realized that, this type of care doesn't fit in an insurance-based model for a variety of reasons. And, that way too, it gave us the latitude to use all the tools that we knew were science backed, data driven, but had just not made it to the regular clinic yet. And one thing led to another. And of course, ultimately we decided, okay, this is too much of a cognitive dissonance. I was trying to health coach people and, on one hand you had more traditional world saying, eat the 100-calorie pack of Oreos and drink Diet Cokes. It's all okay to do. And on the other hand, we were like, oh no, you don't want to do that kind of stuff. So split personality. We sold the insurance-based clinic back in 2015, kind of had a bridge for a couple of years where he had to work for that entity, and then went full force with what we have today, which is Medical Transformation Center at the end of 2017. From that, we had have an offshoot of really curated and formulated really powerful supplementation that we've developed over the years and working with our patients. What we found was that people would go, if we would recommend, a good quality vitamin D, right? You'd go to a big box store and you'd be like, which one? What do I choose? Do we really know it works? So that's one of our other businesses that we have. And we're working on fleshing out a few more other things right now too, as it relates to that in terms of online care and coaching. But that was kind of the journey. Sorry, long answer to that. But it was my health crisis and in need, and then ultimately trying to provide what we found a lot of people desired.
Well, no, it's a great story. And what I find is that it's usually something that happens in someone's life, whether it be health or divorce or a death in the family. That's when it really it sparks that change and that journey into taking another step, right? Taking the next step and really honing in on and discovering who you are and what you really want to do and what you want to give back to the world.
Yeah.
Quite honestly.
There's so much, so much struggling and suffering. And I'm sure you see this in the endeavors that you have as well, where, there's so much invested in the status quo, it seems like, in terms of more, and don't get me wrong. I mean, we haven't thrown away our traditional tools, right? Our traditional allopathic medicine tools, they can absolutely be the right answer. Sometimes we've just added on, and being able to have this large toolbox of regenerative and cellular, peptides or stem cells or exosomes or, targeted nutrient, gut health, all of those other pieces, balancing the whole endocrine system having all of those tools at our fingertips and being able to really look at that big picture, because, you know, it breaks my heart. We get, you know, we have like online forms, right, that people fill out when they want to do an inquiry for our website. And you read these stories. And back in the beginning of this business, I used to do all the phone calls. You know, I had a Google Voice number and I got to answer all the calls when people called in. And my favorite thing to do was basically to tell people, and it was true, you know, wow, we've heard this before. No, you're not
Sure.
nuts. We
Hmm.
likely can help you. The trick is, I mean, especially with this type of care, people have to want to partner with you. There's lifestyle, there are so many components that take effort on both of our parts, to really affect change for folks. But it's wonderful to be able to work with people in that way. And you're right, it is very soul gratifying.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So your role in your practice is you're a wellness coach.
I'm a certified wellness coach, and
You're
I'm
cer-
also a certified professional coach too. I've gone through a couple of different certifications. But I also actually am the CEO too. So you know, that can mean a lot of different things. In the beginning, it meant I did a variety of things. Now, as we have grown, I mean, during COVID, during 2020, I mean, we had actually been in timeshare from 20 end of 2017 until, you know, through COVID. We'd intended to build a building in 2020, but of course we put that on the back burner and went completely remote. We really didn't know what, of course, right, what was going to happen. But what we found was that we actually grew during that year that we were completely remote. And what was interesting was that, you know, the folks that we talked to were really starting to understand, I think I need to be responsible. I need to be proactive, really take proactive care of myself in order to be well. Um, and so we did then end up, you know, with that we started out with a staff of three, you know, with this business. And, you know, when by the time we moved into our current building where we are, which we built, we moved in with six people, and now we have 18 on our team.
wow.
So, you know, again, when you're really small, right? I was everything, the chief bottle washer, the whatever, you know, whatever was needed, right? I would do. And now I'm learning as I go along, which, you know, is sometimes a challenge for me that, you know, to have a team, a leadership team has been such a beautiful thing. And to understand that, you know, I don't have to do everything myself, which sometimes I
Right.
think as women, we think we do, right?
We're the caretakers of
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we have
Yeah.
a wonderful leadership team that really we have each other's backs, and that's been a blessing.
And I think it's really important, and you hit on this, is that when you have your own business, and even when you're CEO, you're going to wear many hats and you're going to be responsible for doing a lot of different things. That's just the way that works. So with that being said, looking back on your career journey and where you are today, is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, of course, right? You know, a few different things. It took me a long time to learn some lessons, you know, that I wish I would have learned earlier. One of them is that what I had mentioned earlier is that, you know, it's okay not to know how to do everything. I used to think, you know, for a variety of reasons, I used to think, oh gosh, I have to know everything. I have to be perfect. You know, I have to
Mm.
stand up straight, stand in the, you know, right? Be perfect. I have to be perfect. And if I'm not, I'm going to be in trouble. I know, going way too far back on that one. But, you know, that was kind of the mindset, right? I have to be perfect. And I wish I would have realized a long time ago that it's okay to not know everything. You're not a failure if you don't know everything. And, you know, you'll actually get things done quicker if you build a team and reach out.
Right.
That was a big one. That's been a big one for me. And really over the last 10 years, that's been a really good awareness. Of course, I was 50 when I figured that out. So bummer. I wish I would have done that earlier. Big one.
Well, I'm with you. I'm in the camp of I'm going to hire people that it's their wheelhouse, it's their expertise. I don't need to know how to do everything, and I'm going to hire people who are smarter than me, and I'm going to build a team around me, and then we collaborate, right? As opposed to I have to take everything on myself and I have to be an expert in social media. I have to be an expert in email marketing. No, you don't have to do all that.
Yeah. I mean, there's somebody who's just, they can do it like falling off of a log. It takes no effort for them. For me, I just in a meeting earlier with my PR team, right? And, you know, one of them on there is so good at writing articles and so forth, but she was having trouble with the vision of it. I'm like, oh, here I see it. Da, 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 da. And she was like, that helps so much. And I'm like, yeah, but you go write the article because if I sit down and try to write that article, it's going to take 100 years.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way. I'm the
And that's
same.
freeing. It's freeing to realize that,
Oh my
you know,
gosh, it is. It
really
really
is.
hmm it's very freeing and it helps with I was stressed out and I was anxious about something because I was taking on so much that my left eye started to twitch, right? That's when I knew that it's
Mhm.
like, okay, this is a sign your body's telling you you're getting stressed and you're having anxiety. It's time to let go.
Yeah.
It's time to let go. So I let go and then the twitch went away. So there
Funny
we
how
go.
that happened,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, there we go. So if you were talking to someone who was interested in doing something similar to what you're doing today, or someone who is interested in getting involved in wellness coaching, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would first encourage them to really dig down and understand why. You know, what is it about that that is resonating with them? Because that's going to really drive their efforts and their passion and how they show up for their clients. You know,
Hmm.
that's really going to drive that empathy and that ability to really relate and to co-create change as a coach, right? Which is, you know, ultimately what a coach is doing. It's really, you know, not that role of, and this was so interesting to me when I learned it, which was why I kind of went down that path of doing these certifications is, you know, coaching is different from consulting, you know, let me tell you what to do, consulting, right? You know, or therapy, you know, it's very different from therapy. Let's go back 10 years and understand, you know, that it's really about where are you today? What resources do you have? And how can you move forward? And so I would also really recommend doing some good training because that training is key too. You know, anybody could hang a shingle and say, hey, I'm a coach. I did something on the weekend and now poof, I'm it. But you know, I don't know that that's really a service to anybody if we do that. So I think really investing in yourself and your education and going through the program and the process yourself is huge. I mean, I ended up, you know, I wanted to do the certified lifestyle coach through the A4M that I mentioned earlier. And there were 4 science modules, you know, that I did over the course. They were online, and then I had to be in person to do the coaching component, that module. And that was actually where I really learned what coaching was, right? You know, as we just touched on. So that's actually then what led me down the path of wanting to be coached personally. That was that awareness that I was just telling you about at 50. Right. Going, you know what? There are areas that hold me back. I don't really even understand why, but I think I'm ready to take it on. And that started that journey for me, you know, almost 11 years ago. So I would encourage somebody to do that work so that they can, again, really show up for the people that they work with as well.
That's eye-opening what you just shared because we have areas of our life where there's a lot of fear and we let that stop us from really doing what we really should be doing, our God-given talents.
Yeah.
And if you can just get over the hump and just say, okay, I'm over myself already, right? I'm over myself and I'm over the fear of doing this that I'm just going to take it on because that's the growth is going to happen and that's what's going to take me to the next step in my life journey.
Yeah. Well, and that was, you know, that really was, there was something about turning 50 for me. And it was, you know, I mean, several of the other birthdays before that really, I mean, 25 was weird to me for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, 50 for me was just like, oh my gosh. First of all, I don't feel quite 50. And of course, we have our own preconceived notions. 50 back when I was a kid seemed a whole lot older than it And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking to myself, but then it started like, okay, have I done what I want to do? Am I doing what I want to do? You take stock and you take assessment. And actually, it's funny because then ultimately the incredible coach that I still have a relationship with today and work with from time to time and has become a dear friend, she was who was teaching that module for the A4M. And I had asked her, I said, will you personally coach me? And she at the time was building she did a coach training school in Asia, and she was launching that. She's like, I'm not really taking on personal clients right now. And I was just like, oh, come on. So ultimately my husband gave me coaching with her as a 50th birthday present, and she agreed. But that 18 months that we worked together like that, that was so powerful, because it was just like you said, it was like, you don't want to look for many years at what it is that you're afraid of, or what's holding you back, or little idiosyncrasies that get in your way. But just having that committed person to work with was powerful. And two, to understand that, you know, our decades now in 2024 of our life are so very different maybe than they were 30, 40, whatever years ago. When you're going into your 50s and 60s, I mean, used to be, oh, I'm going to wind down for retirement, right? Now, for a lot of folks, for my husband and I in particular, I mean, he's 62, I'm 60. And, it's more about, okay, I've amassed all of this experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Now, what am I going to do with it? What can we build next? What can we build next? And that's exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. It's super exciting. Well, and that leads us into I want to talk about your business today. So, can you share with people where they can find you, your website, social media,
Yeah.
all that good stuff?
Yeah, so medicaltransformationcenter.com is our business, just Medical Transformation Center. It's long. But and I will tell you that I'm super proud of our website, because it's it's accurate. It accurately portrays, and hopefully it shares good information for folks. And one of our daughters, actually our oldest daughter, she lives in France, but she works with us as our director of marketing. And so she's really spearheaded that project to really take our website from information like a Yellow Pages ad, right, to really something that's useful and helpful and accurate. So our social media, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. And people can find us under that name. So that's our main business. And then regenerative.com is our lifestyle and nutritional supplementation. And that's actually, again, like I said earlier, getting ready to really start to add more courses, hormone courses, different just integrative health type courses, that type of thing too. So that, again, people can access that from anywhere.
And I'll make sure to include all of that information in the show notes with all the links to your social media and your website. So I'll make sure to share
Great.
that with everyone. So
Great.
my last question for you is, I'm sure you have a plethora of wellness books, but or just any book in general, but I'm assuming that it's going to be wellness focused. Can you share either one that you're reading today or one of your favorites to date?
Well, I mean, one of them has been really, I've been waiting for this one to come out, and it's very powerful and impactful, I think, for folks. That one actually was recently launched by, my mentor, Barbara Fagan, and it's called So What Now What? Which is something she says regularly to her coaching clients, not to be disrespectful, but more about, okay, yes, so that happened. Now, what are you going to do with that? And I love that book because it's a little microcosm of her coaching style, but it's really designed for people who are looking to create change in their lives. And that's been a wonderful read, and I'm so happy that she launched that. The other book that I have really, really appreciated, Patrick Lencioni, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. That one, and he's written multiple. I just actually read his most recent one too, but just, he tells it in a story, right? And but that one was really powerful for me. I read it probably for the first time, I guess maybe 3 or 4 years ago, 3 years ago maybe. in helping me understand, like what we were talking about earlier, that everybody has their strengths and how you really want to build a team. And because that was something that I'm used to being, oh, I'll just do it,
Sure,
and to
sure.
help, so that one was very, I've reread it multiple times and listened to it on ebook. So I need reminders regularly.
Well, I'll make sure to include both of those books also in the show notes.
Thank
So,
you. Yeah.
and I'm probably going to check them out myself.
They're good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, Terry, today for all the information that you shared. You were just a delight, and I love your insight.
Well, thank you for having me. I was happy to be here.
Thank you. I want to thank Terry today for the wealth of knowledge that she shared and also just going into great detail about how that transition from being an accountant to where she is today, how that unfolded. And sometimes I often say we get in our own way and we put up so much resistance where if you just let things flow naturally, how they need to flow, it's pretty magical what can happen. And in this case, just the story about Terry and how she described her journey, it really was about being curious, what's next? What's next? So her wellness care journey led to the business that they have today. And I also appreciate when I asked her the question about looking back, is there anything you would have done differently? And she said, yeah, it's okay not to know everything. You don't have to know everything in life. And when you are building that business and you're building that team, build a team of experts because again, you don't need to know everything. Build a team of people who do know things, right? So I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. Until next time.